the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. It's been showing signs of lots of cracks.
Yeah.
Do you see it breaking soon?
Yeah. Yeah, there have been many violations, I think, almost entirely by Israel. They've been bombing, they continue to bomb Lebanon, and I heard that they seized another village that they weren't able to seize during their invasion. And so, yeah, it just doesn't look like it's very likely to last the whole 60 days. It's just, I think it's quite possible that hostilities will resume in full.
If they're bombing Lebanon and taking villages in Lebanon, then we can just say that the ceasefire doesn't exist, right? Why is Hezbollah letting this happen?
Yeah, well, I guess, I don't know, but I can just, speculate. It's just that they do feel like they need some time to regroup. Again, you remember at the beginning of this conflict, they suffered some grievous losses. That clearly their communication systems had been severely compromised. Maybe there are high-level moles because the Israelis seem to know where all their top leaders were. And that was, that's something that maybe they decided we need to figure this out before we get back into this. That's one possibility. And maybe they're reorganizing, establishing a new communication system, and that takes a little bit of time. There's also the conflict in Syria, and they say that, hey, we got to make sure that Syria doesn't blow up on us before we get back into a war with Israel, because if it does, we're going to lose this war. So that may be another thing. Again, that's just pure speculation. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, with Russia and Iran, moving into Syria, I feel like that force should be able to handle the terrorist army. I don't imagine this HTS al-Nusra lasting long in Syria. And then is there a possibility if these troops are already there in Syria that they might be able to join the fight with Hezbollah and come to Lebanon's aid? Was there any chance that there would be maybe not Russian but Iranian forces?
I don't think so. For whatever reason, that's, Iran, Iranians do go there. Remember, like when Nasrallah was killed, there was a brigadier general, an Iranian brigadier generals there. So they do go and meet with them, but I don't think they've ever sent forces. I think, first of all, probably Hezbollah doesn't need them. That Hezbollah has a substantial force that really knows the territory in a way that the Iranians do not. They know how to fight off the Israelis. They've proven it. So I don't think they need them. And then, the Iranians also just don't want to give the Israelis in the West any more excuses. Not that it seems to really matter, any more excuses to attack them. It seems like Israel's pretty good at inventing excuses, but for whatever reason, they've never done that. I don't think they need to, and I don't think they would.
What do you make of Trump's threat to the Palestinians in Gaza, saying if you don't release these hostages, there will be hell to pay? I mean, they're living through a genocide, so I don't know how much more hell there is to pay. I don't think
anybody there has paid any attention to that. It doesn't make a bit of sense. I mean, what could he do that the Israelis haven't done already? Right?
I don't know. Send U.S. special forces into Gaza? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think he'll do that. All his bluster, I don't think he knows that's unpopular, and he doesn't. I don't think he likes having the U.S. forces directly involved. So it's just an empty threat. Just one of those things that Trump says without much thought. It's just tough talk with, without any meaning.
Do you see much hope for the Palestinians? I mean, it sounded like, they've obviously been suffering terribly. This, it's been well over a year now since October 7th and this ongoing bombing and starvation. And but now with Hezbollah in the ceasefire, Hezbollah being pulled off, and, this distraction in Syria is taking eyes off of the crisis in Gaza. I imagine, there's only your willpower and your spirit can only carry you so far. Do you think that the Palestinians are going to break that? I don't feel as hopeful for Palestine now than I did
Yeah.
maybe a month ago, I would say.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it's amazing. They don't show any signs of breaking. I think, Hamas continues to put up stiff resistance. They're not making it, even though, again, the Israelis have overwhelming firepower. They're not finding it all easy, even in this devastated northern Gaza. So there's no signs of them breaking. But you're right, there is a limit to what any people can withstand. Um, I don't know. It's
Okay,
well, it's
well,
amazing. I mean, the Palestinians have hung on as long as they have. Again, both of us have been in the West Bank, and you go into these communities and you look, see the Israeli settlements up on the hill overlooking them, and that's the constant harassment and abuse and killings and so on that these people are subjected to, that they've been subjected to for generations. And he's just saying, like, how are you still here? I think um, I would have, I'm afraid that I would have given up at some point and just say, I'm sorry, I can't take this anymore. I'm just going to get out of here somehow. But a lot of them, they just have, these are villages that their ancestors lived in for centuries or even millennia. And I guess it's hard for us to understand, the extent to how deep the roots can be for people. Yeah, so
yeah, it's such a tragedy, this ongoing horror. I mean, right? People, this obviously, whatever happened since October 7th, things have really gotten really bad for people in Gaza and
yeah,
also in the West Bank. But this has been going on, like we said, for over 70 years.
yeah,
This type of subjugation and this humiliation and
right,
the killings, the stealing of land, burning olive groves and shooting their
yeah,
water towers, just everything.
right,
And it's so, it's distressing knowing that we belong to a country is that is funding this, that is supporting
yeah,
this, that is allowing
oh,
this to happen.
yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, I think in my lifetime we'll see it end. We'll see it change.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's we're
I think that's realistic. I mean, it's just the horror, of course, is intensified, but at the same time, um, I am more hopeful anyway that Zionism will fail in the foreseeable future. I didn't have that hope at all prior to October 7th. It looked like that's why I think it was Jake Sullivan that said that, hey, the Middle East has never been so peaceful. And it just like basically the Zionists had won. The neighboring countries had come to terms with it, including Saudi Arabia, and the Palestinians had been essentially neutralized, silenced, and we weren't hearing from them, and it just seemed to be over. Uh, and but now, I mean, uh, the now that's not true. I just Israel's reaction has, I think, actually put Israel itself at risk, has put its own existence at risk in a way that it wasn't before. I mean, again, it's just like the change in the world opinion towards Israel just couldn't be more dramatic. They are in a much more precarious position. It's not just a matter of attitudes towards Israel, but it's those attitudes really shape how other countries relate to Israel, including how they relate to them economically. And they whatever happens, I don't think they're ever going to recover from what they've done.